All right, testing. Everybody, thanks for coming. Can everyone hear me all right? We good? Great? Okay, cool. All right. We have a slide in the background that will say the names of the folks on stage. I'm a recent addition to this. My name is Sterling Proffer. I'm the founder of a company called CEOs. And we're here to talk about when crypto goes big leagues. And so I'll let my esteemed panelists introduce themselves. Go for it.
I'm Adam Jones, Chicago. I have to say that because I'm next to someone from the Chicago Bulls. I'm the CEO of Token Events.
Hey guys. Ooh, that's loud. Hey guys, Dan Moriarty, VP of Marketing at the Chicago Bulls. Basically look after anything from a marketing perspective. A lot of offline traditional stuff, but also obviously an increasing focus on Web3 and blockchain technologies and how it's changing how we build relationships with our fans, our events, our players, etc.
So we have 30 minutes, so this is going to go by really fast. And there's a lot that we can unpack because I think sports, when you think about the evolution of, let's just call it the entertainment industries, live, synchronous, asynchronous, however you want to think about that, it's just one of those industries that has a ton of different stakeholders with very complicated relationships, very sort of, can you hear me all right? I'm going to sit closer to you, and I'll speak toward you so they won't think, because these fans are no joke.
Wait, how about you sit here?
Yeah, we can do that. We're just going to do it live so he can hear a little better in this very loud room. So I was just saying that there are a number of different stakeholders in the sports ecosystem, right? It's like, first of all, the fans, the players, the team management, the leagues, the sponsors, the distribution partners, the venue owners. There's so many different moving parts, and I feel like what Web3 has done is allowed us to sort of reimagine and take apart and unbundle the way that things had been done and think about how those things want to be recomposed and realigned in new and thoughtful ways that better align incentives between all the different participants. So I'd say first from a team standpoint, how do you think about it?
Yes, I think so you're right, there's a lot of different stakeholders. Short term, the ones we really think about is the fan, obviously, and how it's going to change the fan experience. So how do we market to the fan? What are fan expectations? Obviously, increasingly with Web3, the idea that network users are the network owners. How does that come to life in a professional sports team? So the fans are really the first people we think about. And then the second big group, which is maybe not as exciting, but is a true one, is sponsorships. Crypto's the fastest growing sponsorship category in professional sports in the US. So there's a big reality that we need to be able to have conversations with crypto companies. We need to know how to create the category, how to divide it up, how to have sponsorships with groups like Coinbase, but also give us some room around there for other crypto companies. And then the other one we've obviously got our eye on is ticketing. And I think everyone in the industry is excited about the idea of ticketing moving onto the blockchain and kind of what that looks like. Beyond that, there's a bunch of secondary stakeholders, right? So you touched on broadcasters, the people that own the rights to show our games, players, the Players Association, the NBA, the league as an entity, and then obviously groups like Dapper that have come in and taken a massive bite of the apple that are all kind of secondary stakeholders. But those first three groups are the ones we're really focused on over the next kind of 12 to 18 months or so.
And in building token events, what was, let's just say, from the perch that you've had sitting at RGA, what was the unique insight that you were able to have in the market, and what does token represent?
Yeah, so the way that we view everything and all of the technology that we're building has been rooted around that fan-first experience and looking at the marketing science and the data science behind user behavior and how do we serve teams, events, and any type of entertainment in a way that not only benefits the fan, but also bidirectionally would benefit a team and a league and other teams that those teams would be playing. And so the way we unpack everything is making sure that we are rewarding those users in this Web3 space with a bit of crypto, but not crypto in a security sense, in a utility sense. Because the Chicago Bulls and other teams like that aren't too concerned about how am I going to reward a fan in crypto? They're more concerned with how do I engage you in a way where you come back and you become a super fan. And for us, we view it the same way. And we want to provide the utility for leagues and teams to be able to engage them in a really intelligent way, utilizing Web3, and not just looking at the sponsorship level of a Coinbase or Web3. What are some of the practical applications and platforms that could be built to utilize not only just the sponsorship, but the advantage of Web3 for the fan?
Right, and I think we all have a sufficiently deep digital marketing background, so I'm going to avoid jargon where possible, but let's just say the ability to target individual users or to profile users based on demographic or psychographic data all came down to this thing, PII, personally identifiable information. And what we've seen is obviously, regardless of Web3, there's been a lot of, let's just say, concern over the degree to which we are tracked and giving up data without our consent. And the interesting thing is, like, now in this like cookie-less, pixel tracking mitigated future, the wallet address is like a cookie by another name that actually hooks in to an ability to have not just an individual identity of who the user is, what they hold in their wallet and what that says about them, but the ability to have direct transactions with them. So how has that reimagined, let's just say, both from your standpoint, how that impacts ticketing and how you rethink how you market a brand in a business like the Chicago Bulls? So you want to go first?
So yeah, I can take on the digital passport or the in real life passport. The way that we're approaching this is the more a fan goes into a venue and engages with a team, the more metadata that we're aggregating around that fan. But we are not aggregating data that is PII or shared data about them individually. We have the metadata that creates this digital passport for them that shows all their interests, all the things that they engage with, and then we can pass that data along to an entity like the Chicago Bulls, and they can say, look at this cross-section of individuals inside the stadium. Here are their likes, their dislikes. Here are what they engage with. Here are the things that make them come back. Here are things we can provide to them to give them that greater fan experience and also unlock things for them. And from our platform and our perspective, we want to provide those services because the user is going to go off and do things in Decentraland or the metaverse. And those things go right into real life where folks like the Bulls could actually serve them.
Understood. And I guess the big difference is the transparency about what data is tracked and the fact that users are explicitly giving their consent to it because it's public, on-chain data. So how does that help you, from the vantage point of the Bulls, rethink the fan relationship?
Yeah, so the estimates are that there's about 180 million Bulls fans globally. We have marketing goals around building that fan base, around bringing them more into being engaged, spending more time with us, but also increasingly turning them into known fans. So rather than this anonymous 180, 190 million people, how do we actually start knowing who they are, knowing where they are, knowing what they care about, so that we can do things as a brand and as a team that appeal more to them? The 180, 190 million, that's obviously global. I think what we're talking about from an arena perspective, we get maybe 300,000 to 400,000 fans come through our arena on an annual basis. So it's such a small percentage of our fan base, but obviously a really important part from a monetization perspective. If you come to a Bulls game right now, I'm going to make up a number, but there's probably a dozen different data capture points, all of which are separate technologies, all of which are owned by third parties, and all of which are asking for different data that doesn't really get fully aggregated for us. I think as we look at the future of Web3 and what it could do, fans are more understanding of the data they're sharing, and B, there's really that single source of truth around identity. And so I think our ability as a brand to build programming, brand experiences, ticketing packages that appeal to them is only going to improve as we have more information on who our fans are and what they care about. Even if, by the way, when I say known fans, we don't need to know their name, right? It's segment known, right? Like, what do they care about? What things are they doing? How do we have more data than just saying we have 180 million fans globally?
I'm going to pivot a little bit away from like performance marketing and hyper targeting, but the last thing I will say on that is that, as you said, it's not even really important to know their name, because what we've learned, let's just say in the age of Facebook-based targeting, is interest-based targeting is more important than anything else. In what is a more explicit statement of your interest and what you own, right? And the activities that you've taken part in, the POAPs that you hold, et cetera, et cetera. So if that's the, let's just call it technical, more performance and data-oriented side, there's also the brand-oriented side of what's possible with Web3. And so maybe you could tell us a little bit about what you did with opening up one of the most precious pieces of IP in the Bulls ecosystem.
Yeah, so when we look at the first of those stakeholder groups for us, again, it's fan experience, right? How are we creating cool experiences for fans that remind them that the Bulls, are their favorite NBA brand? So we're actually working on this NFT drop right now. It isn't out yet. We really view NFTs as a way for super fans to really kind of fly their colors, right, and show the world that they're massive Bulls fans. A little known fact about the Bulls is our logo is the original logo. So from 1966, when the team was created, the logo has not changed. No color changes, no rounding of corners, no changing of fonts. The logo is exactly the same as it was 56 years ago. We're the only NBA team that can say that. And so when we were thinking through what's a cool project that we want to do for an NFT perspective, we don't want to do, not to throw shade at any other teams that have done this, but our ongoing joke is we don't want to put imaginary ticket stubs in space. We just don't think that really adds to the fan experience. But we know people are proud of the Bulls logo. We know the amount of t-shirts, shorts, socks it ends up on. People are proud to wear that logo. And so what we've actually done is we've invited 23 artists that are crypto artists to reimagine the Bulls logo in their own style. And then we're dropping these 23 NFTs as one-of-ones. And so we've got some folks from really big kind of crypto-forward projects, and we've also got some kind of up-and-coming crypto artists getting involved. So for us, it's really showing we understand the space, showing we're engaging in a native way, and doing something that's bringing both crypto audiences into the Bulls fan base, as well as encouraging our Bulls fan base to kind of start exploring crypto and what it looks like.
That's great. And one of the conversations I had the other day was just about how Web3 creates a lot more of an opportunity, and really almost nearly exclusively for more lean-in active experiences as opposed to passive consumption experiences. And I feel like obviously getting involved and contributing and taking a logo and remixing it and feeling like there's a more active, bilateral relationship between the brand and the community and the fan. It's like a lot more than, let's just say, like, what are we supposed to put out on social and what are people meant to like? It becomes really meaningful. And I guess when I think about it from your standpoint, ticketing, live event experiences, you think about, let's just think about like the play to earn, learn to earn, you put something into something and you get something back from it. And you compare that to, let's just say, traditional ticketing packages at live events. How do you think about the reward mechanics between community members and how that, let's just say, exists outside the live experience and then feeds in to the ticketing and live event experience?
Yeah, so if you look at a fan's engagement in logging into streaming, because again, we know that 1% of Chicago Bulls fans can walk into the United Center. That is a very small section of the amount of fans that are there. So if you're going to keep the fans engaged in the funnel and participating with the team, you need to find ways to get them in and earning and actually engaged in a way where they can pay back. So the way that we view it is the more you log into streaming, the more you participate in digital events or in Decentraland or the metaverse or buying merch or even logging in and doing something you were going to do anyway and providing that user with the fan, meaning the cryptocurrency that lives inside a token, you can then take that utility and pay the Bulls for a ticketing package. You could buy some of those NFTs. Joe Freshgoods, because I'm being very colloquial to Chicago, he does something with the Bulls or does some type of drop. Now you start to understand what that user's profile is like. You see them earning those rewards, and that goes back to what you were talking about. You can follow their wallet, you can follow who they are, but you don't necessarily need to know that it's Adam Jones. It could just be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But this is the user profile that engages in our brand in a very meaningful way, and these are the ways that we can reward them, and it's a generative feedback loop. Now the Bulls understand what the greater economy wants. They can provide that right back to everybody. We're providing the fuel and fan, and then we get that data. It's protected. The PII is not shared. And then now, ticketing, you don't need a Ticketmaster anymore because you've created a platform play where you open up the gate to allow people to come in through your door because you already know their profile. You don't need that third party. The fan is now closer to the thing they love. They love the Bulls. They're not necessarily worried about who they're buying the ticket from, but what they would love is an experience where I bought a ticket and that ticket opened up all these other doors which are rewarding me so I can reward the thing I love. And that, at the end of the day, is Web3. Our participation counts, who we are matters, and we want to be closer to those things.
Got it. So I want to pivot to a little bit about, let's just say, the ticketed experience, the live experience that transcends those that are physically in the building, and what's kind of unlocked and open through Web3. Sports brands in particular are increasingly global brands, right? Obviously, there's a hyper-specific, hyper-local density of super fans in and around the area, one would hope. But increasingly, there are big pockets of fans all around the world. So how do you think about the way that an organization like the Bulls can use Web3 to build and deepen relationships with an increasingly global fan base?
Yeah, it's actually equal-sized opportunity as it is a challenge. We did one NFT project last year. A lot of our fans were asking, where is the utility? How are you baking it into this? Like every project, right? But it's really hard because we are a geographic brand. We are based in Chicago. Our games are in Chicago. Our stadium's there. We're also inside the NBA. So for those that don't work in sports, the NBA basically gives us a license to operate our brand within a 150-mile radius of the United Center. So you're taking the professional sports model in America has very much been built on geographic boundaries. And then you layer in Web3, which is very much not built on geographic boundaries. And the two projects that we've done, the one we've launched and the one we're working on now, both of them, we've really said we need to make this as relevant for a person on the opposite side of the world who has never even been to America, let alone a Chicago Bulls game, as we need to make it for the person down the road in Chicago that might be able to show up to the United Center. And so I can't tell you we have an answer yet, but I can tell you that's really how we're thinking through it, right? Like, I think longer term, we really want to figure out how do we do something that's, a loyalty program, but a loyalty program for fandom, not necessarily just monetization. And how is it global in nature? And how does it have some of those Web3 elements? So governance, so what sort of decisions can we allow fans to make? I really don't like when we do meaningless fan polls. So pick a song that a team runs out to isn't really governance, right? That's such a soft entry point. And so we're really exploring if we were to build a modern day Web3 community with the limitations that the NBA puts on us as well around token counts and unique token designs, what would that look like? And how would that really encourage the folks, again, all over the world? With the first NFT drop we did have a in-person utility for people that completed challenges. The only person that completed the full challenge, which involved collecting one of the 6 tokens, one for each of our championship rings historically. The only person that completed the challenge is in Australia. And so it really shows like how global in nature these platforms can be and how global in nature our brand is as well. So I don't think I actually answered your question so much as just said it's a challenge that we're trying to work through.
It's a rapidly expanding space. And to bring it to the ticketing perspective, typically there's a cap on a number of tickets, and that's based on venue capacity. Now we live in a world where, especially with this idea of proof of attendance, that proof of attendance does not have to be physical. So what is the future of the ticketing experience? Because I can imagine if I'm a Bulls fan, for example, and I'm living in New York, because, the Knicks are a bit rough, as always, and I'm at a bar, and I'm watching the game. Am I buying a ticket to that game through your app?
Absolutely. So proof of attendance is one of the cornerstones of everything we're doing, because attendance doesn't necessarily mean I'm geolocally located on Madison inside the United Center watching a game. My participation with the Bulls, I could be a Chicago native, want to be at the game, and be in Australia for some reason or another, but my fandom is still important to the Bulls organization.
The idea of actually being there, right? Participating and saying, I was there for that moment, even if I was in a physically different location.
Absolutely. And by checking in and giving them the mechanics around, even if you were to pick up, and we can call it the non-fungible experience, and rewarding them in their utility, then that data gets passed to the Bulls, and they can start to see and unpack, look at how many people are actually so glued into this game that they're checking in and actually purchasing a ticket or picking up a non-fungible experience to then present that data right back to them. Because the more I participate and the more I get rewarded, the more the Bulls are going to know about my profile and who I am, the better when I actually do cross the threshold on Madison, it's going to be important because they're going to know this person, maybe I bought a 300 level ticket, and they can look in real time at that data around that person and go, you know what? We have some awesome seats available for you now.
And I think I'd quickly say, when we think about attendance, that's just one part of the fan journey, right? So we have, for any NBA fans in the room, there's League Pass, so you can watch out-of-market games wherever you are. In market, there's an RSN. We have a youth program that when you have a kid, we encourage you to sign up your kid for Bulls Kid Nation, which brings the kid into your fandom. We have Fanatics as a retail partner, so there's a million different touch points there. And so I think for us, it's the same challenge, not just proof of ticket, but it's like proof of any engagement, any deeper level that there's value in all of that for us, obviously.
Got it. One thing we haven't dove into as much, we've talked about the teams, we've talked about the fans, and we've talked about that experience and that relationship. Let's talk about the players for a second, because what's really interesting is if you think about even just the age of social media, what it's done is it's allowed players, celebrities, whoever it may be, to build direct to user, direct to fan communication channels. Ultimately now, Web3 is allowing for direct to fan, direct to community economic relationships, deeper community relationships. I don't know that this is the panel to talk about what that means in terms of player contract negotiations and things like that. But I guess my question is, as players more and more are building out their own brands, their own communities, how do you, from a team standpoint, think about, let's just say, controlling that or embracing that? Just as a reference point, I know that in the world of journalism, a lot of journalistic institutions have a problem with their reporters tweeting, right? Does this comport with our standards? Does this do that? And journalism is wrestling with that. And I can imagine those same dynamics maybe playing out on the league side. So how do you see that?
Yeah. Directionally, we're very supportive of whatever our players want to do. If they want to be active on social, if they want to do NFT drops, whatever they want to do, we're supportive of them. There is a bit of a weird relationship, right? So the players are part of the players' union. The players' union negotiates a contract with the NBA directly. The NBA is actually owned by the 30 teams. And so you have this weird kind of cyclical relationship between where rights sit between the league, the players, and then the local teams. Our NFT drops, for example, we can't use any current players. We can't use any game footage because all of that, the game footage belongs to the league, who have obviously sold that to Dapper. The current players' rights belong to the players. We're allowed to use them for certain things, but nothing from a crypto perspective. And then the players themselves are allowed to go and monetize their brands, which is great, right? They should be able to. They're the ones that got themselves to that level. So we just found out Lonzo Ball, our starting point guard, is doing an NFT drop in the next couple of weeks. We found out the same way everyone in this arena found out, through Twitter. They don't have to run that stuff through the team. They're also doing it with Michael Jordan's kid started a NFT company, Air. They're doing it with them, who have also done their own Six Rings NFT collection. And so there's a kind of big ecosystem, and I see as a fan how it can be pretty confusing, right? Because you don't necessarily understand where the rights sit between the league, between players, and between teams. And so sometimes I know our fan base can be a bit frustrated about why aren't you doing X? And it's like we're not actually allowed to do that thing until the player gives us explicit permission. And I think for anyone who saw Spencer Dinwiddie talk yesterday, he touched on players are increasingly aware of the fact that there's opportunities for them to grow direct-to-fan relationships and to monetize those relationships, which is something that players have had the ability since social to build direct-to-consumer relationships but haven't really been able to monetize it the same way. And so players are obviously very protective about those rights now. And like Dapper, for example, just quickly, Dapper wasn't just a deal with the NBA. It was a deal with the NBA and the NBA Players Association because they needed both parties to have the rights to do what they've done.
Yeah, I guess we can say that we're very much in the early days of what these executions look like, and it's going to introduce a lot new logic around how different parties coordinate and ultimately find a way to make it all mutually beneficial. But I think the idea of the players and the individuals being able to exercise greater control over their future is ultimately a net positive. That's my opinion. Talk us through, because we're closing in on the last few minutes of this, when Web3 is a couple years on from now, every major sports team, every major sports venue is using your technology. What is the fan experience ultimately going to be like? Like, walk us through, just give us like a sort of 60-second walk through. What is the experience of being a fan and buying a ticket, going to the venue? How is the venue experience improved? How is the overall experience improved?
Well, you give me 60 seconds, and I'm pretty long-winded when it comes to technology.
I'll give you 90 seconds.
Okay, 90, I'll take it. So the fan experience is going to be a walk in the park compared to what it is now. All the different friction points that you have as a fan, from showing up to an Uber to getting to the venue, walking to your seat, all those things, the friction's not going to be there. By the time you buy your NFE, we're already understanding where you're located, when you need to get there, where your seats are, how to pick you up. Now you walk inside the stadium with edge compute and 5G technology, and where we're at inside of sensors inside the stadium, we that now know where you're at, what you need, what we need to provide to you, and we have all the data around what you're into. That data gets fed directly to the Bulls, or insert any team. Then they are able to provide that back to the user, and they're able to engage in a frictionless way and enjoy the game and move about the cabin, as it were, and have fun. And then at the end of the day, when they're leaving the venue, they're able to accrue their rewards or accrue their utility, and they're offered up things that they want to engage in. That's it. The idea is all of us can think of the daunting task it is to go to an event and all the different things that you kind of run into that are friction points. The idea in Web3, remove the friction points, the data is the feedback loop, and we use the technology that's there. 5G pipes are inside these stadiums, and we're giving them 3G solutions. Let's work on the edge compute, and let's provide the user with those experiences, because the user's in the center, the user's who we serve.
That's exciting. I think also just like surprise fan experiences. How is it going to change the halftime giveaways? It's not going to be like, you know, section 432, row 37, seat 2. You're going to actually get a lot more precise around what those experiences
here's
and rewards
one.
will look like.
You know those where there's a TV timeout, it's like follow the ball. Imagine you clicked 4 and you were right, and then you got utility right there sent to your wallet. Instead of being like 4 and everyone yells and cheers.
Cheaper concessions.
There you go.
There you go. So in our final moments, any sort of final insights on where you think, like maybe the most transformative thing that you think that Web3 is going to do to change the future of the sports leagues?
Don't have a single answer. I think what's really interesting for us, right, is NBA and all American professional sports leagues are inherently centralized. You know, there's governing bodies, there's unions, there's geographic restrictions, there's broadcast deals. It's really interesting to me for us to start putting this decentralized approach and technology on top of our model and then seeing how that plays out. I think
And we'll see if a DAO buys a sports team.
see if a DAO. Yeah, I mean, literally, I'm secretly in that DAO because I want to see how it plays out.
There you
I
go.
don't really want them to know I'm sitting there watching. But like, you've got DAOs trying to buy sports teams. You've got a DAO that bought a soccer team in England already. You've got metaverse basketball leagues that are starting to be formed, right? Like, the people are really starting to create decentralized entities on top of this. And I think that's good for the fans, right? I don't think we're ever going to become a completely decentralized league, but I think anything that gives power back to fans, more of a voice in the fan experience and the team and the brand, I think that's going to be good for the sport and for fandom long term. So no idea how it's going to play out, but I'm excited to see.
Please join me in thanking our panelists. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.